So the Supreme Court term just ended, which means they've released all of their opinions from this past term, and the opinions range from abortion to gun control to free speech and social media. It's a pretty wide-ranging term. They covered a lot of stuff, but there's one case that just got released, and the way they ruled in that case has far larger impact than any case they've ruled on in the last several decades. But unfortunately, it has to do with a rather intricate, complex legal doctrine that really no one even knows what it means. A lot of lawyers don't even know what it means. And so that's why it's really not getting covered too much. That's why I'm here to cover it today, to break it down as simple terms as I can and let you know about this absolutely massive Supreme Court decision that really no one is talking about. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Scotty O, aka the Gen Z Attorney, and I'm currently an assistant district attorney in the great state of North Carolina, which means I'm a prosecutor. I work in court every day, and I'm working to put bad guys in jail. Now, while this channel mainly focuses on high-profile criminal cases as well as the day-to-day within the criminal justice system and really pulling back the curtain to show you and tell you what it's like, I did specialize in constitutional law in law school, and I'm a pretty avid Supreme Court watcher myself. So when the Supreme Court's putting stuff out, so I love following the Supreme Court and seeing everything they put out and everything they're working on, because they really cover some interesting legal issues. So that's why this is one of my favorite times of the year, when they're putting out all the opinions they've got left over from the year. And so, of course, I'm reading the different opinions, and then I see a case come out from them where they overrule something called the Chevron doctrine. And I'm here to tell you today, Chevron doctrine, what it stood for, and now the fact that it's gone, massive impact. It's got the potential to have more of an impact on our everyday lives than any of these other opinions about gun control, abortion, Roe versus Wade, anything like that. Chevron doctrine really had more power than all of that combined. So, what is Chevron doctrine? Now, Chevron doctrine comes from a 1984 Supreme Court case having to do with the oil and gas company Chevron and the rules and regulations that were being implemented on them by administrative agencies. So to understand how Chevron doctrine actually works, we have to understand what an administrative agency actually is and what it does. Now, if you go back to your middle school civics class, you remember the three branches of government, which are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. In simple terms, legislature, they make laws, executive executes laws, and judicial interprets laws. That's how the Constitution created it. It's Articles 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution, legislative, executive, judicial. But over the course of the 20th century, there's been the rise of what's called the fourth branch of government, the unofficial fourth branch of government, called the administrative branch. Now, the administrative branch is comprised of all different sorts of administrative agencies that are created by the legislature, by Congress, but with the powers of Congress, the executive, and even the judicial sometimes. Essentially, these agencies will be created to kind of fill in the gaps of where Congress can't really legislate too well on all of the issues. So here we have these agencies that will be staffed by experts, these unelected bureaucrats that get appointed by the president, and they will basically create rules and regulations that will fill in the gaps between Congress's broad laws. Now, in principle, that sounds like a pretty good idea, where Congress can't really be expected to legislate on every little issue, and there's just too many people, there's too many different situations, too many circumstances in this country. 340 million people now. So it makes sense to have these agencies staffed up by these experts that are able to kind of fill in these gaps where appropriate. However, one of the critiques of the administrative branch is that A, it's not in the Constitution, it's not provided for by the Constitution, and there's no amendment that's been passed to create the administrative branch. It's more of just an offloading of the responsibility from Congress and from the White House onto this branch of unelected bureaucrats, to where they get their directions and they do what they're told to do. But if they ever mess up and do something that goes way too far, or something that's politically unpopular, well, look, now you've got Congress saying, we didn't do it, it was the agency. You've got the president saying, I didn't do it, it was the agency. Even though the president technically runs the agency, the president appoints the director of the agency, who then will hire the people all the way down to the bottom. So the only real recourse when an agency messes up as we the people is, I guess, to elect a new president every 4 years, who can then hopefully fire the head of the agency and put in somebody who can do something that you are more liking to. But either way, that's kind of been the rise of the administrative state. I don't know how many people currently are working in it. It is the largest employer of people in the United States, are these agencies. Now, when we get to 1984 and Chevron, which gave us the Chevron doctrine, basically the ruling from Chevron was when an agency creates a rule or a regulation, and that rule or regulation gets challenged in the courts have to defer to the experts within the agency and basically what they say and how they feel about the issue. Rationale, of course, being an expert on the implementation of fishing regulations is going to know more about the state of fishing, commercial fishing, than a federal judge or a Supreme Court justice. And so since they know more, the idea is, right, okay, we're going to defer to them and what they say on the issue. But the biggest problem with this idea of what's now become Chevron deference, where we defer to the experts in the agency, is it essentially made the agencies uncheckable, because the agency can pass a rule or regulation, it'll get challenged in the court, and the court will say, okay, experts in the agency, what do you think? And of course, the experts, they work for the agency. So of course the experts are going to say, we think this is great, this is necessary, this is what we need to do. And the court will say, well, Chevron deference, I have to defer to that, nothing we can do, our hands are tied. And that's where this idea of Chevron deference became an issue, because essentially, you've just written a blank check to these administrative agencies that aren't even in the Constitution. Basically do whatever they want without any checks and balances on them, because, well, if their experts say so, then our hands are tied. So then, since 1984, there's been a push to remove Chevron deference, to take it back to where we were before. And that's exactly what happened in this most recent term. Now, the case at hand, called Raimondo, explicitly overruled Chevron deference. So it's taken it back to the standard from before 1984, to where now courts, they may defer to the experts in an agency, but they won't be forced to, which creates a huge ability to check agencies when they do stuff that we may not like, and actually start to shift some of the power back from these administrative agencies back to the legislature, back to Congress, back to the executive. Because that was the main problem to begin with, is you've got the people who are elected to represent us in the Congress. You know, our House of Representatives, we elect them every 2 years. So that's a pretty quick turnaround time, where if they do something we don't like, they better enjoy their last year in office, last few months in office, because they're getting voted out. Congress understood that and realized, dang, we're expected to legislate on some rather controversial issues. So if we do something that our constituents don't like, they're going to vote us out. So how about we just ship off the responsibility to this unelected branch, staffed by these unelected bureaucrats, and give them the power to create these regulations, and then let them hire these experts to then defend those regulations, and have a Supreme Court say, well, if the experts defend it, then their hands are tied to challenge it. Cool. Now the agencies can do whatever they want, and if they do something unpopular, that's going to look badly on them. We can just say, look, we didn't do it. We're not part of this agency. We're Congress. But now with Chevron deference gone, and with the courts able to check these agencies again, it just totally reshaped the entire nature of a whole huge list of issues. I mean, you've got environmental protection, so the EPA. We've got OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Agency. So yeah, there's a whole huge wide range of issues that the courts are now able to take into their own hands as far as interpreting how the law and how an agency regulation is supposed to be applied and interpreted, instead of just deferring blank slate, blank check to the agency. Now, the goal of this, the hope of this, is that by putting the power more back in the Congress's hands, in the legislature's hands, there will be more accountability there. The experts can still defend their position, but instead of the expert just going to the unelected bureaucrats and defending it, the expert is now forced to go to the elected legislators and try and convince them to actually pass laws. I don't know if anyone watching has a positive view of Congress as a body, but my view of it is that they really don't pass laws at all. They just tweet and yell and do Instagram lives and campaign and fundraise for 6 months straight at a time and don't do any legislating. And then every 6 months they'll get together because the budget's about to run out, and they'll pass a 2,000-page omnibus bill that gets released the night before the vote. So the congressmen have 8 hours to read this 2,000-page bill before they're expected to vote on it. So they get together, pass the omnibus bill. Okay, cool, we did it, work is done, government's funded. We've just earned another 6 month break to go vacation, yell, tweet, scream, do everything but make laws. I know, it's a crazy concept that our lawmakers should make laws. So that was at least the goal and the idea behind getting rid of Chevron deference, is now our lawmakers will be expected to make more laws. And they should. They really should. I mean, they get paid, $180,000 a year, crazy government benefits. You get elected to one term of Congress, and you've got a lifetime medical benefit, lifetime pension, just by serving 1 2-year term in Congress. Especially when they get to just futz about for 6 months at a time and do nothing. Go to the floor once every 6 months and pass an omnibus budget and boom, go back to business as usual. yeah, hopefully with Chevron deference gone, there's going to be more responsibility on Congress to actually start making laws again instead of just shifting the blame away from themselves. And I think this is also a good thing to reduce the power of the administrative state, because the government, the Constitution, the first 3 words in the Constitution are "we the people." We the people constituted the government. The government exists to serve us. I know it doesn't always feel like that, but that's how the original contract, the original bargain between the people and the government started. But the only way that contract survives is if the government is actually representing us, and the way the government represents us is if we have the ability to vote on who is in the government. And when you've got a massive 4th branch of government that's staffed exclusively by people who you cannot vote in or out of office, you can only vote for the president once every 4 years and hope the president will then change the staff at the agency. That's such an unaccountable way of organizing a democracy. Like I said earlier, I can see some justification for an agency to exist to fill in the gaps where Congress really cannot legislate, because it's true. The country is massive, and there are going to be things that Congress just cannot get to. But right now, Congress isn't getting to anything. Like, let's have them start getting to some things before we just say it's going to be the responsibility of these bureaucrats to do all the work for them. So yeah, I think it's good for the American experiment. I think it's more in line with what the Constitution actually stands for, considering, right, like I said, there's no amendment of the Constitution creating an administrative branch, the same way that Article 1 created the legislature, Article 2 created the executive, and Article 3 created the courts. I could go on and on about checks and balances and the separation of powers, but I think I've got the point across that Chevron deference, we had it for a while, it's gone now, and it's going to have a huge impact on the way regulations are promulgated. I think that's a good thing. But let me know down below if you agree or disagree. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I know this was a bit more nerdy than the more salacious celebrity cases that I've been going over. But yeah, that's all I've really got for today. If you like this type of content, if you like this video in particular, please drop a like down below. And if you like the content generally, then I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to come back for more. I try and break things down in the simplest terms possible and really spread knowledge, spread insight into a complicated system that I think is important. I think is necessary for people to understand how the system really works, so that way we can ultimately work to improve it. And yeah, if you made it this far, made it to the end of the video, I really do appreciate it. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. So I will see you all on the next one.